I'm a 26F, and my sister Emily, 28F, has made my life a nightmare for as long as I can remember. People talk about sibling rivalry like it's some harmless thing, petty fights, childhood pranks, maybe some jealousy here and there. That's not what this was. Emily didn't just want to be better than me, she wanted to destroy me. It started young. Every time I made a friend, Emily found a way to turn them against me. She was the golden child, charming, confident, the kind of person adults adored. I was the quiet one, the sensitive one, the one always accused of overreacting. If I told my parents that Emily was lying about me, they'd brush it off as sibling stuff. Middle school was the first time I saw how far she'd go. I had a best friend, Sarah. We were inseparable, until one day, Sarah stopped talking to me. Just like that. I'd catch her whispering with Emily, throwing me side glances, acting like I was some joke. A month later, I overheard Sarah telling someone that Emily had warned her I was obsessed with her, that I was a clingy weirdo who would eventually stab her in the back. It was completely made up, but it worked. I was left alone, confused, and humiliated. High school was worse. My closest childhood friend, Josh, completely cut me off. He wouldn't even look at me in the hallways. It took years before I found out why. Emily had told him I was bad-mouthing him behind his back, making fun of his family, calling him a loser. I had done none of those things, but by the time I knew what had happened, it was too late. My parents never took any of it seriously. Every time I tried to bring it up, I was met with, "Oh, you two need to stop fighting or you're just being dramatic." They saw Emily as ambitious, popular, someone who could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was the one constantly picking up the pieces, too exhausted to fight back. College was my escape. I moved to another state, hoping that putting miles between us would finally give me some peace. It didn't. Emily still found ways to interfere. She'd message my friends, acting concerned, twisting my words to make it seem like I was untrustworthy. I remember one time, a girl I was getting close to suddenly pulled away. Months later, I found out Emily had sent her a long message about how I had a history of using people. Then came work. I got a great job in my field, something I was genuinely excited about. At first, I thought I was safe. Emily had never expressed interest in my industry. But months later, she announced she was making a career pivot, citing new connections and opportunities she had found. I didn't have to guess who she had been watching. At first, I tried to be optimistic. Maybe this would be different. Maybe adulthood had mellowed her out. It hadn't. She started networking with my coworkers, positioning herself as the more accomplished sister, making sure everyone knew she was the one to pay attention to. I still told myself I could handle it, until she went after my relationship. I had started dating someone seriously. For the first time in years, I felt like I had something that was just mine. Emily had never even met my girlfriend, but that didn't stop her. She swooped in and warned her about me, telling her I had a history of cheating, that I was manipulative, that she was just trying to protect her. It was an absolute lie, but it didn't matter. My girlfriend dumped me in a whirlwind of tears and accusations, too overwhelmed to figure out what was true. That was my breaking point. I thought about going low contact, but it wouldn't change anything. Emily had already embedded herself into my life. She wasn't just a problem, I was trapped. So I made a decision. I got a job offer in a different city, in an industry space Emily hadn't touched yet. It was a fresh start, and I took it without hesitation. And that's where I met Madeline. Madeline, 30F, was the kind of woman Emily had always wanted to be. Successful, well-connected, respected. I'd heard Emily talk about her for years, desperately trying and failing to get into her exclusive social group. Madeline was the one person Emily could never impress, no matter how hard she tried. And then somehow I found myself standing next to her at a work event. At first, I wasn't thinking about Emily. I was just trying to survive in this new job, this new city. But then something unexpected happened. Madeline and I clicked. Instantly. We had the same humor, the same drive. Conversations were effortless. By the end of the night, she invited me to another gathering. That's when it hit me. Emily had spent her whole life making sure I could never have anything of my own. Every friendship, every opportunity, she found a way to take it or destroy it. But this was something she could never touch. So I decided to do something I had never done before. I wasn't going to hide. I wasn't going to avoid her. I was going to take the one thing she wanted most. Update 1. After that first event, Madeline and I started hanging out more. At first, it was just coffee meetings and work lunches, but it quickly turned into something more. Dinners, weekend outings, even casual get-togethers at her place with her inner circle. It was effortless. Madeline wasn't just well-connected. She was the kind of person people naturally gravitated toward. She had this rare mix of confidence and warmth that made her the center of every room she walked into. If she liked you, people took notice. And she liked me. Emily had spent years trying to break into the same social group Madeline ruled over, but she never made it past the surface. She would drop Madeline's name in conversations, desperately trying to make it seem like they were friends. In reality, she was just another name in Madeline's long list of industry acquaintances. So when Emily found out that I, not her, was spending time with Madeline, she took notice. It started small, a casual message, pretending she was just curious about how my new job was going. Then a few more questions. She wasn't subtle. She wanted details: how I met Madeline, how often we talked, if she had mentioned Emily at all. I kept it vague, acted like it was just a casual work friendship. Nothing serious, nothing worth her attention. I could practically hear her frustration through the screen. Then came the event invitation. Madeline had invited me to a private gathering, one of those events. The kind of thing that wasn't publicized, that you didn't just ask to attend. You were either invited or you weren't. Emily had tried to get into these circles before. She had name-dropped, networked, even attempted to charm her way in. It had never worked. So when I showed up, mingling effortlessly with the very people Emily had spent years trying to impress, she must have lost her mind. It didn't take long before she started fishing for an invite. She started casually mentioning the event in conversations, testing if anyone would extend an offer. They didn't. And that's when she got desperate. A few days later, Madeline pulled me aside. She had something to tell me. Emily had reached out. She had warned Madeline about me. Apparently, Emily told her I was a manipulative liar, that I had a history of using people, that I was only getting close to Madeline because of her connections. She painted herself as the concerned older sister looking out for someone who didn't know any better. What she didn't realize was that Madeline didn't just take people's words at face value. Instead of believing her outright, Madeline asked me about it first. "This doesn't sound like you," she said, watching my reaction carefully. When I told her about Emily's history, she nodded, thoughtful. "I've seen this kind of thing before," she admitted. People desperate to prove their worth by tearing others down, and that's when she laughed. Because Emily had just exposed herself. She had seen this kind of thing before. People desperate to prove their worth by tearing others down. But the damage to Emily had already been done. Word spread fast. People talked. The story of Emily's attempted sabotage made its way through the group, and just like that, she became that person. The desperate outsider trying to claw her way into a world that didn't want her. For the first time in our lives, the roles were reversed. I wasn't the one scrambling to defend myself. She was the one losing control. And she panicked. She tried a new tactic, playing the nice sister. Suddenly, she was reaching out more, asking how I was doing, acting like she wanted to reconnect. I played along. I wanted to see how far she'd go. She started acting like we were close, as if all those years of sabotage had never happened. She made sure to comment on my posts, react to my stories, make it seem like we had some sort of bond. Madeline noticed. One night, over drinks, she gave me a look and said, "You know she's trying to pull you back in, right?" I did. And I wasn't letting it happen. I hesitated. For years, I had been the one left scrambling, the one caught off guard. Even now, there was a part of me bracing for her next move. But then I reminded myself, this time was different. I wasn't that helpless kid anymore. So I waited, let Emily think she was winning. And then, after gathering my courage, I confronted her. Casually, calmly. At least that's how I hoped I sounded. I asked why, after years of barely speaking, she was suddenly so interested in my life. She fumbled, made up some excuse about wanting to fix things, acted like she was just looking out for me. I didn't argue. I didn't react. I just watched as she realized I wasn't falling for it. She tried to backtrack, laugh it off, play it cool. But it was too late. For the first time ever, I was the one in control. Update 2. Emily couldn't stand it. She had spent years making sure I stayed beneath her, years controlling every social and professional space I tried to step into. But now she had lost control, and she hated it. Since she couldn't break me and Madeline apart, she did what she always did. She started spreading rumors. It started subtly. Small whispers in the right ears, vague comments designed to plant doubt. Someone mentioned that Emily had been asking questions about me, wondering if I was really as nice as I seemed. Then the story changed. I was opportunistic. I was using Madeline. I was only in the group because I wanted something. It was classic Emily. She never came out and made direct accusations. She didn't need to. She knew how to let people come to their own conclusions. But when that didn't work fast enough, she escalated. A fake text scandal. Emily faked messages, making it look like I had been bad-mouthing Madeline behind her back. They were carefully crafted, just vague enough to be believable, just inflammatory enough to cause damage. She wanted it to work. She needed it to work. But it didn't. By now, Madeline knew me. She knew my personality, my habits, the way I communicated. The moment she saw those messages, she knew something was off. Instead of believing them, she went straight to the source, Emily. Emily hadn't expected that. She thought people would take the bait, that the rumor would spread like wildfire before anyone could question it. But instead, she got called out. Madeline confronted her at an event, publicly. She didn't make a scene, didn't yell, didn't act dramatic. She just asked, point blank, where did these messages come from? Why did they sound nothing like me? Why was Emily suddenly so concerned about a friendship she had tried to sabotage just weeks before? Emily tried to backpedal. She stammered, made excuses, tried to spin it like she had just heard about the messages but never actually saw them. But it was too late. People were watching, and they saw her for what she was. Desperate, pathetic, a liar. The moment was quick, but the damage was done. The humiliation hit instantly. Emily's reputation, what little she had left, crumbled. And just like that, people started cutting her off. Nobody said it outright. Nobody announced they were done with her. They just stopped inviting her, stopped responding, stopped caring. For Emily, that was worse than anything else. And she snapped. She confronted me, furious. It was my fault, apparently. I had ruined her. I had turned everyone against her. I didn't argue. I just told her the truth. She had done this to herself. For the first time, she had to face the consequences of her own actions. And she hated it. So she did what she always did. She ran to our parents. She spun the same sob story she always did. That I'd hurt her. That I had hurt her. That I had ruined her professional connections. That I was being cruel for no reason. And like always, they took her side. They called me. Asked why I couldn't just let this go. Said Emily was going through a rough time. And that I should be the bigger person. I told them I was done. I wasn't playing this game anymore. Emily wasn't struggling. She was just finally facing the results of her own choices. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care what my parents thought about it. Emily was officially out of my life. She tried reaching out again. Small things here and there. A casual message, an attempt to act like nothing had happened. But the damage was done. She had burned too many bridges. She was frozen out, professionally and socially. For the first time ever, I wasn't the one looking over my shoulder. She was. And it felt incredible. Update 3. Emily wasn't used to losing. She had spent her entire life controlling every social space she entered, making sure I was always in the background. But now the tables had turned. She had no control, no influence, and for the first time, no audience. At first, she tried to act like nothing had happened. She started interacting with Madeline again, slipping into conversations at events, making casual comments on her social media posts. She wasn't direct, she wasn't dumb, but she was testing the waters, trying to see if she could slide back in. Madeline didn't play along. She was polite, civil, but distant. She didn't ask Emily how she was doing, didn't invite her anywhere, didn't engage. Emily tried harder. She started networking aggressively, reaching out to other people in the social circle, pretending the fallout had never happened. Nobody took the bait. People remembered. They had seen what she did, how desperate she had been to tear me down. No one wanted to be connected to that. She was frozen out. Meanwhile, my career had never been better. I was thriving. I had strong connections, opportunities opening up, and no one was interfering. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to look over my shoulder, waiting for the inevitable sabotage. And Emily hated it. For the first time ever, she was alone. She didn't have people falling for her stories. She didn't have me playing defense, cleaning up her messes. So she did the only thing she could think of. She reached out to me. The message was long. Too long. A mix of nostalgia, guilt-tripping, and fake sincerity. She missed me. She regretted how things had played out. We were sisters, after all. Family. Didn't I want to rebuild that? I gave her a simple response. If she truly wanted a relationship, she needed to take a hard look at herself. Not just say, sorry, not just pretend to change, she had to actually change. She didn't respond to that. Because she wasn't interested in changing. She was interested in control. And for the first time, she wasn't getting it. Madeline watched everything unfold from the sidelines. One night, over drinks, she looked at me and smiled. You won, she said. She was right. I had spent my entire life feeling like a victim of my sister's schemes. But not anymore. I wasn't scared of her. I wasn't waiting for the next attack. I had finally won. And I didn't need her approval. I never did. So I did the only thing left to do. I let go. I stopped checking in. Stopped wondering what she was up to. Stopped caring whether she ever changed or not. Because I had moved on. And that was something she could never take from me. Update 4. Emily had always thrived on being at the center of every social circle she touched. But now, months after her failed attempts to manipulate her way back in, she was slipping into something she had never experienced before: isolation. She wasn't being invited to industry events anymore. The people she used to casually name drop stopped responding to her messages. No more networking lunches, no more opportunities to rub shoulders with influential people. And she felt it. At first, she tried to act like nothing was wrong. It's like she chose to step back. But then the cracks started showing. She turned to social media. The posts started out vague, generic quotes about outgrowing fake people and realizing who your true friends are. Then the tone shifted. Passive-aggressive comments about certain family members who had betrayed her, who had stolen her opportunities, who had made sure she was shut out of the industry. People noticed. Someone from the group sent me screenshots. Along with a simple message, she's spiraling. Madeline took one look and laughed. Predictable, she said. And that was the difference. Before, I would have panicked. I would have worried about what Emily was planning next, about how she would twist the story. But now, I didn't care. Emily had lost her audience. The people she was trying to reach, the ones who mattered, weren't paying attention anymore. But she wasn't done yet. She changed tactics. She started telling people I had stolen her connections, that I had ruined her career, that I had deliberately shut her out. When that didn't gain traction, she went back to the only people who still listened: our parents. They called. They repeated Emily's latest sob story, that I had destroyed her reputation, that I had turned everyone against her, that she was struggling and just wanted to make peace. I didn't entertain it. I told them, flat out, Emily wasn't a victim. She was dealing with the consequences of her own actions. There was silence on the other end. They didn't know how to respond because, for once, I wasn't playing into it. Madeline, watching everything unfold, gave me a warning. She's not going to take this quietly, she said. She was right. It happened at a big industry event, the kind Emily used to be invited to without question. I was standing in a small circle, talking with some well-known figures in our field, when I heard her voice. Loud, shaky, coming straight toward me. People turned. Conversations stopped. Emily stood there in front of everyone, her face red, her expression unreadable, somewhere between anger and desperation. And then she started talking. She said I had ruined her, that I had made sure no one in the industry would work with her, that I had orchestrated everything, turning people against her, shutting doors she had worked so hard to open. It was loud, messy. People started moving away. No one wanted to be part of this. Madeline didn't move. She waited until Emily ran out of words, then, calm, controlled, spoke. No one turned against you, Emily, she said. People just don't like manipulative liars. Silence. Emily looked around, eyes darting between the people she had once tried so hard to impress. No one came to her defense. No one agreed with her. She had nothing. Then, without another word, she turned and stormed out. But unlike before, there were no sympathetic glances, no whispered reassurances from the crowd. Over the following weeks, people still spoke to her, out of politeness, out of habit, but the power she once held was gone. She wasn't blacklisted outright, but the invitations became fewer, the responses slower. It was a slow fade rather than a dramatic collapse. The aftermath hit fast. People reached out. Some sent messages of support. Others just wanted to confirm what they had already suspected, that Emily had been digging her own grave for years. And that was it. The last piece of control she thought she had, gone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one trapped in her shadow. She was trapped in mine. Update 5. After her public meltdown at the event, Emily disappeared. No more forced smiles at industry gatherings. No more casual attempts to slip into conversations. No more networking moves to rebuild what she had lost. She was gone. People talked, of course. In quiet conversations over coffee and hushed side remarks at events. Everyone knew what had happened, and no one wanted to be associated with that kind of mess. One by one, people started creating distance. Even those who had once tolerated her still spoke to her, but they were careful. Conversations stayed surface level, invites became infrequent, and her influence quietly faded. She still had people around, but no one she truly trusted. And for someone like Emily, that was worse than outright rejection. Some unfollowed her on social media. Some just quietly removed her from group chats and email chains. It was over. And then, like clockwork, my parents called. They were worried. Emily was struggling. She felt alone. Didn't I think it was time to fix things? I gave them my final answer. I was done. For years, Emily had manipulated every aspect of my life. She had destroyed friendships, spread lies, and tried to control my career. And now that she was finally facing the consequences of her actions, she wanted me to clean it up. Not happening. Madeline had been watching all of this unfold, staying on the sidelines but keeping a close eye on how it all played out. One evening, she summed it up in a single sentence. She has two choices. She can either grow from this or self-destruct. Either way, it's not your problem anymore. And that was the truth. Emily wasn't my responsibility. She never had been. But she wasn't done yet. Her last attempt came in the form of an email. It was long, full of memories from when we were kids, mixed with accusations about how I had ruined her life, how it was my fault she had lost everything, how I had destroyed her career, her social life, her reputation. She played every card she could, guilt, nostalgia, even a hint of fake remorse. I didn't respond. Not a word. Silence was the best revenge. A few months passed. Life moved on. And then through industry connections, I found out that Emily had moved. New city, new job. A fresh start somewhere where no one knew her history. It didn't take a genius to figure out why. She had burned too many bridges here. She had no way back in. And even in her new city, things weren't going as smoothly as she wanted. Her reputation had followed her. People talked in our industry, and her past behavior, it wasn't something that just disappeared. Her name didn't carry weight anymore. Her connections had dried up. She had no more shortcuts. And eventually, even my parents stopped trying to fix things. They stopped calling about her, stopped pushing for reconciliation, stopped acting like I was the one who needed to make things right. Because deep down, they knew. Emily had done this to herself. And me, I thrived. I had a solid career, a great social life, real friendships built on trust instead of manipulation. But for the first time in my life, I didn't have to watch my back. Madeline was still by my side, proof that I could have genuine friendships, that not everyone in the world was waiting to betray me. And Emily, I didn't even think about her anymore. Because for the first time, she had no power over my life. And that was true closure. Nearly a year had passed. Emily had been completely out of my life. No messages, no sudden appearances, no new drama. She had moved away, struggled to regain her footing, and from everything I had heard, nothing had changed for her. Then, out of nowhere, a long message popped up on my phone. It was from Emily. It started off with the usual, the nostalgic talk about how we were family, how we had shared so much history, how she had been reflecting on the past. Then came the new leaf speech. She claimed she had changed, that she had grown, and that she just wanted to make amends. It was the kind of message that years ago I would have believed, but I had seen this pattern before. Emily didn't do genuine remorse. She did strategic remorse. I forwarded the message to Madeline. Her response came instantly. She wants something. I did a little digging. Quietly, discreetly, I reached out to a few industry connections, people who had interacted with Emily in her new city. The picture that formed was exactly what I expected. Emily had lost another job. The details weren't clear, but the pattern was there. She had pulled the same tactics, trying to manipulate her way into power, playing people against each other, making enemies instead of allies. And it had backfired. Again, she had also tried to insert herself into another social circle, but her reputation followed her. People kept their distance. She wasn't frozen out completely, but she wasn't welcome either. And now, suddenly, she wanted to reconnect with me?
Right.
The guilt tripping was all over her message. Family should stick together. You're my only real family left. I don't want us to be like this forever. The most surprising thing? My parents weren't involved this time. They didn't call, didn't pressure me, didn't try to convince me to let Emily back in. It seemed like even they had grown tired of dealing with her messes. But the biggest red flag, there was no real apology. She said things like, I know I made mistakes, but never actually admitted to anything specific. No mention of the friends she turned against me. No mention of the lies she spread. No mention of the career sabotage, the ruined relationships, the years of manipulation. Just vague words. So I decided to test her. I responded with one question. What exactly are you apologizing for? She didn't expect that. Her response came quickly. Why do you always have to be so difficult? And that told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't changed. She still expected me to forget everything, to pretend like none of it had happened, to let her back in just because she wanted it. So I made my final decision. I told her I wasn't interested in reconnecting. That was it. No anger, no long speech, no rehashing the past. Just a simple statement. She tried one last trick. You'll regret this when I'm gone. Maybe once upon a time, that would have worked. Now, it didn't even register. I blocked her on everything. Phone, email, social media. Done. Madeline and I met for drinks that night. She took one look at me, smirked, and raised her glass. Proud of you. We toasted. And just like that, Emily was out of my life for good. For the first time in my life, I had peace. No waiting for the next betrayal. No second-guessing every friendship. No dealing with Emily's drama. And the best part? Life was thriving without her in it. My career had taken off. After years of grinding, I had finally gotten a major promotion. My work was being recognized, my professional network was expanding, and I was now seen as one of the up-and-coming names in my industry. The same industry where Emily had once tried to outshine me, only to fade into the background. My social life was stronger than ever. I had built a solid circle of friends, ones I knew I could trust. There was no backstabbing, no subtle manipulation, no one waiting for a moment to tear me down. Madeline was thriving too. She had leveled up in her own career, securing a position that made her one of the most influential people in our field. Our friendship hadn't just survived, it had strengthened. The more time passed, the clearer it became Emily had never been able to come between us. Then, through mutual connections, I heard about Emily. She wasn't doing well. She had bounced between jobs, struggling to hold onto a stable position. The same behavior that had made her powerful in the past, her ability to manipulate, control, and play people against each other, was now working against her. People in her new city had caught on quickly. No one wanted to deal with her. Her social life wasn't any better. She had tried integrating into another friend group, but people were wary. At first she adapted, keeping her tactics subtle, carefully planting doubts instead of outright lies. But eventually, old habits resurfaced, and once people caught on, they distanced themselves. This time, instead of a dramatic fallout, her exclusion happened in quiet, unspoken ways, plans she wasn't invited to, messages left unanswered, conversations shifting the moment she entered the room. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No sympathy. No guilt. Just indifference. She had done this to herself. Even my parents had stopped bringing her up. At one point, they had fought so hard to keep forcing us together, making excuses for her behavior, begging me to fix things. Now, nothing. They had finally accepted it. Or maybe they were just tired of trying to justify her choices. One night, Madeline and I sat outside on a rooftop lounge, overlooking the city. "You won," she said, swirling her drink. "It's not out of revenge. Not because I beat Emily in some kind of battle, but because I had built something real, and Emily never could." And she was right. I had given Emily countless chances. I had tried to forgive. I had tried to be the bigger person, and she had wasted every single opportunity. Now, I was free. No longer the weaker sibling, the one always looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next hit. Then came a moment that made it all full circle. My company was hosting an exclusive event, one of those events, the kind that only a select few in the industry got invited to. Emily had always wanted to be part of something like this, and now, I was the one standing at the center of it. I was the one people came up to, shaking hands, making introductions. Emily wasn't there, and she never would be. Not because of anything I had done, but because of what she had done to herself. For a brief second, I thought about her. Not with anger, not with resentment, just nothing. She was irrelevant now. And that was the ultimate victory, not just against Emily, but for myself.